I love it.
I'm going to call to order the February 24th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Directors of Clackamas Fire District at 5 p.m. At Clackamas Fire District, we are always here for you. We value our employees, the people we serve. Our focus is establishing teams, trust, empowerment, accountability, mindset, and service. If you are attending in person, please sign at the sheet next to the door. The regular monthly meeting of Clackamas Fire District's Board of Directors will now come to order at 6 p.m. per ORS 192-610 to 192-690 per ORS 192-650. This meeting is being recorded. Video recording of this meeting will be placed on the Clackamas Fire District website. Now, if you would please stand and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Chief Brown, any changes or additions to the agenda?
We do just have a couple small changes and then a quick update if that's okay. In that Director Cross is just running a few minutes late and he will be here shortly. We do have some small changes. Assistant Chief Dan Mulick will be remote today. So during his report, he'll chime in on the computer. And then for R1B, Assistant Chief Brian Stewart will not be here, so we will not have a report out from him. And then also R1F, Vice President Gordian notified us he just wasn't going to be here today. He didn't have much to report, and he'll report out next month.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any changes or additions to the agenda? Okay. Then we will accept the agenda as presented. Next up, we have approval of minutes of the regular board meeting on January 27th, 2025. Does any board member have any comments or changes to share? Thomas, John? No. If there are no changes, the minutes for the regular board meeting on January 27th, 2024 are. Hang on. January 2025.
Yes.
I see. Somebody did the script wrong, so it looked like I messed up. As we know, that hasn't happened since '83. Okay, public comment. I will now call for statements from citizens regarding district business. Ariel, did anybody sign up?
We did not have anybody sign
Did
up.
not. If there is anyone who wants a chance to sign up prior to the meeting as public comment, you can sign up on the sign up sheet over there. If you're on the line, you can do the handset to do 9 or do the raised hand function. If we don't have anybody, we'll move on.
I don't see
We're gonna
anybody.
move on right past that. Dump the rest of the script. Next thing we have is B1, request board approval of new trustee on Clackamas Emergency Services Foundation Board. Vice President, Emergency Services Foundation, Don Trotter. Don, you gonna handle this for us?
I hope so.
Thank you, sir.
Board of Trustees is working very diligently to try to increase our membership. So we worked out with our trustees, and they're starting to recommend people to us. So Terry Rosenbaum recommended Olivia Brandt to us. And our process is, once we get a recommendation, then the executive committee interviews that person. And then we invite them to come to a meeting and meet everybody else. So I did. I interviewed Olivia. And she most recently worked at Legacy Health Company, urgent care in Gresham, as a technician. She has a paramedic license. And she's currently in the process of finding another job. But she's looking to give back to the community. And she feels that the trustees, the Clackamas Foundation is a great one to be part of, because she wants to be back in the community. She also knows that the foundation is looking for more people to join with perhaps some new ideas, and she's ready to contribute. And after the interview, our next step is to invite them to a board meeting, which I did. And she came and she really liked the board members and they really liked her. So the end result is the executive committee, we should recommend her to the you all to appoint her a new trustee. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Don? No? Then do I hear a motion for the board to approve Olivia Brandt as a new trustee on the Clackamas Emergency Services Board?
So moved.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Ariel, could you call the roll, please?
Marilyn,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Don, it looks like you have a new board member.
Thank you. We'll be back probably at your April meeting with somebody else.
Love it.
Keep looking for victims. Or volunteers, we call them volunteers.
Oh, that's a better word.
Thanks, Don.
You're very welcome.
Okay, next up, we have request board approval authorizing the fire chiefs to establish contracts for facilities improvement projects at the training center, training warehouse, and Station 12. CFO Mark Whitaker and facilities manager needs to do that. You probably just butchered your name today.
No, you're fine. I answered just about anything. Well, there's two O's, it is Toyota.
Okay.
So I'd also like to introduce, this is Brandon Dull, the associate principal for Scott Edwards Architecture. He's partnering on our project team with us. Mark, did you want to start with this?
I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay.
I will, you know these projects the best, and then I can turn it back to me if you wanna talk, budget or financing for me.
He's so smooth, you didn't even see him pull the ripcord and bail out.
So our project team consists of Chief Stewart, Chief Kyle Olson, and Chief McCullough. So we have the training center, as you can see on the top of the board, and then the training warehouse and Station 12 that we've been working on. So the initial project was brought to me as a napkin drawing and a whiteboard drawing. So we have looked into whether or not we needed architect services for our permitting, and we did. So both the county and City of Happy Valley required that of us. So we cultivated quotes for the architectural services, and we ended up with SEA, Scott Edwards Architecture. So we contracted with them, and so they have been doing taking our drawings, the napkin drawing and the whiteboard drawing, and cultivating that into permit sets that we could utilize for review. So once we get through City Happy Valley's review, which we did, and then also submitting for Clackamas County, which we're still waiting for final on the permits of that, we're still under review. So we did go ahead, and once our permit drawings were done, we put out an invitation to bid to our contractors. So that invitation to bid was January 8th and the 10th. And that was out on our website, as well as the DJC Daily Journal of Commerce, which is a plan center that most everybody will go look for projects for. We did a pre-bid mandatory meeting at all of the sites on the 14th of January. And that garnered us about 40-ish contractors to the training center and training warehouse, and about 50 at Station 12. So we had a wide variety of folks looking for business and looking to get these contracts. After the pre-bid meeting, we had our bid opening, and that was on January 23rd. So the training center had 6 bids, training warehouse had 6 bids, and Station 12 had 10 bids. And so we went through those bids. We find the most responsible and bidder, low bid, of course, for public bidding. And we fell on Pacific Sun Construction for the training center and Buildscape for both the warehouse and also Station 12. It looks like we're still in the permit process with the county, but if all goes well tonight, the training center's start date for construction is March 3rd. We'd be looking to follow that up with the training warehouse just for scheduling with the academies, so that we're making sure we still have places to put the academies. The training warehouse would be July. And then as soon as we have permits ready to go, we're hoping still in March to start Station 12.
Anyone have any questions or
On what, the process or the project?
process, projects? Take your pick.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, see, there was a bid bond required. Is
Yes.
there a performance and
Yes.
payment bonding?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Of the, what's it, and, especially since neither of these entities have been in business longer than 5 years. And so I'm kind of concerned as to their expertise and their abilities to do the work, so that the bonds are extremely important.
and they qualify for all of those bonds.
And we have history with Buildscape. We've done a project with them previously. Acknowledge that they're, I wouldn't say they're in their infancy, but they're relatively new. They did excellent work in the previous project, and it was a Washington County project, very time sensitive environment. They did a great job. And then Pacific Sun Construction, we have history with them through another GC, and they come highly recommended. So
And
we're
they're,
confident we got good partners.
and they're also working with Clackamas County currently.
That's what.
So you have the approvals from Happy Valley? Because Happy Valley was a little bit of an issue for us over on the 130th project. We thought we were done with them and then they said, no, you're not done. And so I just.
We do, we actually have permits available to us for both those projects, training warehouse and training center.
So the only, just the clarifying point there is the GC will pull it, and then they're responsible for their trade permits. So they'll pull their mechanical, electrical, and plumbing permits. But overall building, we are ready to go for Happy Valley.
And that's just typical of construction where the trades will go get their permits and they consider them over the counter themselves.
Thank you.
Well.
Any other questions? I didn't think that's the only thing I was gonna check on. The only one I saw at Station 12, the bid spread was a lot higher than I'd like it to be.
On
That was
station
it.
12, yeah. We did have some. I think on 12 it's just the nature of the construction and we do have some structural components in there. So depending on somebody's perspective of how much time and labor that would take, I think you get those bid spreads.
Yeah. They're worried about surprises when you pop those walls open.
Anytime I do a construction project where we run into going into something that's already been built, you tend to have a few surprises. We're just hoping they're minor surprises and not any major surprises, but that's not unheard of in our industry to just manage through those.
And I would add, particularly with the interest that we saw, 50+ people, showing up to a pre-bid walk for a project this size shows a lot of hunger out there, and then also, a lot of interest in this Woodland Fire District. So that swing in bids wasn't as much of a surprise with that.
Workflow too.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're just finishing the discussion about the 3 contracts. Got any questions?
Yes.
Do I hear a motion authorizing the fire chief to enter into a contract valued at up to $731,000 with Pacific Sun Construction for the training center project, up to $850,850 with Buildscape for the training warehouse project, and up to $488,030 with Buildscape for the Station 12 project.
So moved.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second. Ariel, could you call the roll, please?
Jim,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have fun. Did Gomez Adams remind us what could possibly go wrong?
Don't jinx us, Chris. Come on, man.
I've done it before. All you gotta do is work through it. Look and go. All right, OB1, board liaison committee reports. I talked to Shelby last week, and one of the things Shelby does is trying to figure out which meetings and who we've had. And then we get here anyway, and she asks, and some of us have a meeting that she didn't know about. So we just decided, rather than her trying to navigate who's got a meeting and then ask again once we got here, we just pare it down to once we got here, if somebody has a meeting to talk about, we'll talk about it. So Marilyn, we'll start with you. Do you have a liaison report?
No.
How about you?
No,
Jim?
None, we have a Glasgow meeting coming up. This
Tomorrow,
week,
Wednesday, yeah.
but, none in the past month.
Okay. I don't think I had any either. That was easy. See, we saved Shelby all kind of time.
You know, I did have a little bit back and forth with Brian, so he got some text messages about that,
Forest Service.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that was, you know, I was just thinking, oh, DDA stuff, but
Yeah, I think maybe Brian can give a report out on that post, this week's legislative movement.
right.
That might be the,
Basically, at the end of the day, he said he got everything he needed, but, you know, we left it at that, but.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I think, you know, Brian's, heavily involved obviously in state initiatives right now that affect the fire district.
Right.
And this one in particular has a small impact to the Clackamas Fire,
Right.
but he's gonna be better. He's went direct with Director Hawes,
Okay.
was a couple things with it as well. But there's just really, I don't think a need to
Okay.
really talk about it in a public
Right.
setting unless there's movement at the legislature.
right, okay, I would agree with that, okay, cool.
All right, then we will move on. Any informational updates or comments? Then we are Office of the Fire Chief.
Awesome.
Brown.
Thank you so much. So, you know, I'm gonna dive a little bit into emergency services here, cause Dan's gonna talk a lot about the Blue Heron. So, just as far as my report, end of year stats for Clackamas Fire, I just wanna call attention to the fact that we responded to 34,119 calls in 2024. That's a jump from where we were at the year before. But that's something that, a lot of organizations will hang their hat on and be, you know, proud of. I don't think for us, Clackamas Fire, that represents the great work our people are doing, but I think we are looking at these calls and why we were responding to some of these calls. And so we have, when we talk about modernizing EMS, the Rescue 301 implementation of that in January has proven to be highly beneficial. But again, that's calling attention to calls that we are responding to, that we are taking a really deep dive on why we were responding, why we're getting dispatched, and if a fire engine or heavier apparatus or even that rescue needs to be responding to in the first place. So though that number is increasing, know that the fire district is really diving into the call types that we get dispatched to and why the fire department is getting dispatched to. So 34,000 isn't something that us as an organization wants to focus on. We want to focus on property saved due to fire, and we want to focus on lives saved. And so those are analytics, as you will notice in the quarterly siren newsletter. We have a section in there that we call out annually how much property we've saved based on us being there, the fire department being there, and we're still trying to grab good analytics to lives saved, because I think that's really important that we hyper focus on those numbers versus run volume. Rescue 301. I do want to bring up a couple interesting stats with Rescue 301. If I could pull them up here, give me 1 second here. So in January, Rescue 301 responded to 383 calls for service. But something I want to draw attention to is the fact of, and it's not an apples to apples comparison, but it is something that's really intriguing to me. Last January, Engine 301 went on 372 calls since initiating Rescue 301. This month they went on 129. Engine 302 last year at the same time went on 271 calls. This year they went on 172. Engine 308 last year they went on 225. This year 215. Heavy Rescue 305 they went on 318 calls last year. This year, this month. Sorry, I said that last year. Last January, they went on 318. This January, they went on 165. So what we are seeing in a 1 month of implementation is a really Rescue 301's taking on that what it was intended to do. Alpha and Bravo calls, they went on 192 calls for service for Alpha and Bravo. Charlie and Delta, that's where we get more into the life-saving calls. They went on 140. So it's proving its worth based on what we had forecasted. And so I'm excited to see the trends as it moves forward, but also watching that vehicle to make sure that they aren't getting overburdened as well. But I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Yeah, so I got maybe a question, comment, I agree with the chief on, life saves, and property save, but another thing too, I'm sure Rick's looking at is, reducing the, what a frequent caller.
Yeah.
Reducing the frequent callers calling.
Yep.
And how much of an impact that program's having as well.
Yep.
I think that's huge.
Yeah, we'll try to get you about a year's analytics behind that. Rick's got a mechanism that he's in partnership with the county gathering that data. But I don't have that. I need to be able to respond to you.
But I think that's a really important impact that we're having on the community there too.
100%.
When is our next one coming?
That's it. We've got Rescue 16 and Rescue 301.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Rescue 16, that got put into play. Right when the levy got voted through.
Oh, that's right. That one.
You did that first.
Okay. There's the two. Okay. Good. Anybody have anything else for the chief? Okay, we will skip down to Assistant Chief Steve Dieter's Office of Business Services.
Thank you, Mr. President. A very short report. January doesn't hold a lot of stuff for us, but the Sandy contract continues to go very, very well. Lots of good feedback from their board, and we met with the board last week as we do every month. So still get great feedback from the community and the board on how that is going. And then an update for you guys. We have 3 openings on the Civil Service Commission. Right now, we have 2 applicants that are not incumbents. So 2 of the 3 that are currently serving have indicated that they'll apply again. So there might be several people for you guys to interview. That'll happen in March. And as you know, they'll come to a board meeting, you guys appoint in that meeting, and then the first meeting will be in April. So hope that the application period ends on the 26th at 4 p.m. So hopefully we'll be able to get some information on the next board packet and have that happen in March. Happy to answer any questions.
Just to go back after him. Sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
Question with the Sandy contract, did the consultant ever find out whether it would require an election of both bodies?
Yeah, I think we're confident that it's not gonna require a vote of Clackamas. We're just trying to get that in writing, but everything is leaning towards that, and Brian was working on that component, but everything is leaning
So
towards.
like we don't have.
It looks like
we wouldn't
Clackamas won't have to vote.
Yeah.
In the same way Gladstone, we wouldn't have to.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for Steve? Okay. Next up, Office of Financial
Real quick,
Services.
sorry.
Oh, you
Sorry, I'm sorry, buddy. Sorry.
Take something else. Mark.
This is, I know it, but this is just something that I think is really important, just as far as Crew 30. Pretty robust recruitment this last go round for Crew 30. We did have 12 returning members, which is amazing. Having a 50% for Tech 2 hand crew like that is super impressive, but the depths of which we're recruiting, we have somebody from Pennsylvania. I mean, it's all portions of the United States that we're grabbing as far as applicants for Crew 30. So the crew size this year is gonna be at 23 total. And just excited about what that program is doing and all the good work that they're doing, so.
Great. Take it away, Mark.
Okay, good evening. So as usual, there is a finance report in your board packet, starting on page 24. I don't have a lot to add to it. The same themes and trends that we've been seeing throughout the year are still there. Some things are strong. There are some concerns still in overtime and healthcare costs. But fund balance and everything remains strong. Only other updates I have outside of finance is a quick bargaining update. We continue on the path to arbitration. So the Employment Relations Board did send both us and the union a list of 7 arbitrators to choose from. So within the next week or so, the 2 parties should get together to strike names off the list and narrow it down to a single arbitrator. Once that arbitrator is selected, we'll work with them to start actually to schedule the arbitration hearings. So that's all still in motion. And I think outside of that, those are my only major updates. Unless there's any questions on the finance report or other things.
Any questions or comments from Mark? Go ahead, Marilyn.
So what are we doing about the overtime? We don't just brush it by and say, well, we're having problems with it.
Right, so, I mean, part of it is, you know, is the. In staffing up for the levy, right, we made the strategic decision to. Fill some positions necessarily before we had the academies, to fill them all, right, so there was an expectation built into the budget that we have higher overtime. And so what we're seeing now, in the second half of the year with the academy that just graduated and went off the line in January, is that overtime has started to fall, so the overage that you're seeing will start to shrink. I will say my estimate was a little off, and I think we will still see, being a little bit over budget, on overtime in the year. And, you know, the ups, I guess. The solution to that right now is, that's one of the reasons we do the conservative budgeting, is that we will have excess revenues, we will have some savings in other areas that we'll use to stay within our overall budget. And then in the long term, right, we are continuing to look at, additional staffing to fill some of those vacancies. Our contract proposal includes a sick leave incentive that we're hoping will incentivize people to utilize less sick leave and reduce the number of hours that we need to backfill. And I think, those are some of the strategies we're looking at.
And then in the capital replacement fund, the communications line item is 176% of the budget.
Yeah, we made the decision to purchase some extra radios. A couple opportunities came up with some surrounding fire districts. We have a radio shortage, some devices that have reached their useful life. And so that will be part of a supplemental budget, but what we would expect is other line items there will have underspending. We just need to shift it within those categories. We don't necessarily intend to spend all the fleet money this year, all the facilities money and some other pieces. And hopefully, we'll also have a general fund surplus that might allow a bigger transfer into the.
That's the most you expect it to overrun then, is the 176%.
Yeah, I think we've done all the purchases we're planning for radios and communications this year.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Jade? Okay, all right, thank you, Mark. Office of Emergency Services, Assistant Chief Dan Mulek is disembodied self sitting in his car.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just got an emergency alert says there's a tornado warning by my house. So if this gets cut short, my apologies early.
Go on, would you?
Yeah, and so starting to hail, so we'll see where we go here. So yeah, thanks for letting me tune in remotely. Spent the afternoon down at the Office of the State Fire Marshal, and it was just I wasn't gonna be able to make it back in time. So I want to give just a quick update on Blue Heron. Blue Heron is the second incident we've had, major incident we've had there in 4 years. And if you remember back in about 5 years actually, back in 2020, we did have the multiple alarm incident where we had a structural collapse, and we put our people at risk to try and save values at risk, and those were people that were potentially inside the building. And so we're very aware and very cautious with this structure, and knowing that the whole thing is going to get demoed anyway. So we ended up having a 3-alarm fire that got dispatched on the 31st of January, just 2 hours after a multiple alarm apartment fire up in Oregon City. So we had crews that were clearing that incident that arrived on the Blue Heron incident to a well-involved fire that is right up against the railroad tracks and right up against Highway 99, which is right up against the bluff with values at risk up above. So our incident commander did a really good job of setting up the scene and establishing a defensive strategy, and with the intent to keep the building to the fire of origin. I'm sure everybody has seen on social media photos that those buildings are all pretty much connected. An exposure building wasn't a half a block away exposure. It was pretty much connected to the building that was involved. Every one of those buildings is hazardous. They're all condemned buildings. Have they have most of the assets and combustibles removed out of the inside of there. Any of the value was removed years and years ago. But these things are death traps, and so everybody knows about it. So the thing catches on fire, and it becomes, because of all those things I just mentioned, it becomes a PR situation that the fire district had to manage. Wasn't necessarily managed in the first couple hours of the incident, but it was managed from about daylight. Actually, we're 3 weeks into it, and we're just getting this thing wrapped up. So I want to just give the update to the board of directors, kind of everything that was involved with this, with the staff from Clackamas Fire. We had over 100 firefighters and 3 alarms agencies from Portland, Tualatin Valley, Canby, Clackamas. We had a good number of those crews had just cleared another apartment fire. We had cooperators involved we had an ORS notification with water runoff into the Willamette. We had DEQ notifications. Sorry, 1 second. Doing the best I can in the car here. So we had notifications to DEQ. We had notifications to the city of West Lynn, Oregon City, Clackamas County Disaster Management, the railroad, ODOT, and it was quite extensive. By 8:30 in the morning, we had our first cooperators meeting, where we had it on the back tailgate of the slide out of BC 302. And that was about 4.5 hours after the incident started. We were able to give the entire county and some of the city representatives updates on exactly what we were dealing with, and being able to get a hold of and in front of all the public concern. One of the concerns was that we had ashfall that fell through the city of Gladstone and across parts of Oregon City. We had people concerned with asbestos that was falling on their cars and on their properties, respiratory issues, smoke inhalation issues, all that. So a big thanks to CRO West for helping out. Chief Brent Olson, Chief Jonathan Shireman, Chief Kyle Olson, everybody who came in and helped run the incident from further past the initial attack phase. We set up an incident management team with Clackamas Fire, which we were able to put together an incident management or an IAP, and we had a unified command with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde by about 2:30 that afternoon. That is an extremely unusual component for a fire agency to have unified command with the tribe, and I just want to commend them for their eagerness to help out. And I think with the unifying, with the decision making, we had a great path going forward where all parties fully understood. We did realize a day or so into this, so we had a PR crisis on our hands moving forward for the long term, knowing that these buildings were going to burn for quite a while. So we utilized Coastline PR to get information out to our communities and to our elected. So we were able to coordinate with our PIO office and Coastline, who represented Clackamas Fire. We were able to get the Willamette Falls Trust, the commissioners, Clackamas County Board of Commissioners, City of Oregon City, or City Council. Everybody was on a meeting where we were able to discuss and give a rundown, and Director Hawes was on there as well, to be able to clearly articulate what the challenges were and what the public risk was with this incident. So needless to say, it's now the 24th of February, and we have a demo company that is there taking down the buildings, and we still have smoke from the buildings. So this is just an interesting component. We'd never have an extended incident like this. And we never had an incident management team ultimately end up running a PR, an ongoing PR crisis. So just want to give the board an update that kind of wraps it up. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I know Director Hawes, you were kind of had your finger on this as well. If there's anything I can clarify, I'd be happy to.
Do we have any questions or comments for?
Dan, I knew there was quite a number of agencies involved. Was OSHA ever get involved in this kind of incidents?
Not we didn't deal directly with OSHA. No, not at this point. The main component, Thomas, was really of the public concern was the ongoing concern with respiratory challenges, like with the people up on top of the hill. That was really the ongoing part. DEQ really settled early that there was no public threat. Our notification to ORS, which notifies the Coast Guard of anything contaminating the waterway, all that was very little concern. Really, ultimately, what ended up happening was just the air monitoring and air quality, and explaining to the public that there really wasn't a threat to them. But it was because it was so visible. We just had a lot of inquiries with that. So that was the main threat. And so OSHA has not been involved at this point.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Nick.
I just would like to add a couple things to Dan, what Chief Mealich was saying. You know, he talked about the incident commander who showed up. Really, how these scenes go is really how it's set up, and how the first crews arrive, how they handle the incident, and the first incident commander and Battalion Chief Bauer did a phenomenal job setting this incident up correctly. When Dan arrived, the transition of escalating the event to having Dan be the IC and Mike taking was really textbook with how this incident should run, from my stance listening to it, and then pointing out our crews. Running a second alarm apartment fire that was a very showy fire, and then cleaning up hose and immediately going and fighting a third alarm fire. It just shows what our people face day in and day out, and the resilience that they have and the mentality which they have at keeping the public safe. Both of those fires could have gotten out of hand, but because of their actions, we're able to keep it confined to the buildings of origin, and I'm just super impressed with the incident commanders. I'm super impressed with the organization. I'm super impressed with our crews and what they do day in and day out. And it just reflects how they responded to that call. You know, I look back to some major things that we've had in this organization that have seemed to have started in 2020. And then every single year we are getting escalating events and big events like this. And it's not just a wildfire, it's in commercial fires as well. And I'm just proud of where we were as an organization and where we are and where we're going, as far as incident management teams and getting ahead of PR, public relations information to the community. So yeah, I just super proud of our team, and super proud of the men and women of Clackamas Fire and how they respond to these incidents that come up every single day.
Chief, Jay, go ahead.
Like two things. First of all, I thought Santos did a great job with his social media stuff.
Yeah.
That was awesome. You know, that all of every one of them. I don't know if I was able to watch every one of them, but I watched as many as came across my computer. And so I thought he was great. And I know that was a couple of days into it, but he still did a great job with the video and everything, and pointing out what the challenges that those folks are facing too. Anyway, you can throw him a big, he will do a nice job. The other thing I would say is this is an example, what happened that night is an example of why we need to keep our heavy assets available to do heavy asset stuff.
Correct.
Like we've been talking about for years. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just glad that our heavy assets weren't on some light asset thing that night, and then they could respond to that fire in a timely manner. And it's important to keep doing those, keep their heavy assets available. So well, it's working.
Can I ask Chief Mealich if it's okay, just to give a small, quick, really short, quick update on the deployment between both strike teams to California, Dan?
Oh, that'd be good.
No, yeah, absolutely, Nick. And I can help fill in the gaps too if my phone doesn't ring.
Okay. No, I'd love it if you would fill it in. I was asking if you would do it, not me.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. So
No, I wasn't gonna talk. You need to talk.
yeah,
Sorry, you had a question too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we sent, we had two different orders that came through, Office of the State Fire Marshal. So we had one on January 9th, and then we had another one, on January 11th. So the first one was for a strike team of type 3s, to go down to the Palisades fire. And then the second one was a strike team of water tenders, also assigned to the Palisades fire, but ended up getting rerouted to Beaumont, California for the staging location, for Cal OES and Cal Fire. Both strike teams were performed exceptional, represented the county well. The first one was led by Chief Brent Olson. And his aide was Chief Greg Barnum from Lake Oswego. And then I led the strike team of water tenders myself as the strike team leader. And then I had DC Matt English from Canby as my aide. So both trips were very successful. It sounds like the strike team of type 3s went down directly to the fire. They had Ian Yoakum as the IC and the agency rep from OSFM that was able to go down and help coordinate and get facilities set up for that team. So they were able to stay in an office building with 15 other strike teams from Oregon, and we're tied directly to either the Eden Fire or the Palisades Fire. A lot of what they ended up doing, they started with some fire, some mop up, and it turned into repopulating the area. Turned out into a lot of public relations component with doing wash downs, prepping streets, brush removal. And I believe they said that in the first 24 hours, the county had more brush that was being relocated in one period than they did in an entire year. They ended up using a golf course to actually process and mulch all the debris that was down across the streets. That strike team had everything sounded very successful. Really very little negative came out of it. All good travels, both up and down the corridor, which was 2 days each direction. And then our strike team of water tenders, we were assigned as an incident attack module. We were specifically assigned with Montana, a strike team of type 3s, and with a Cal Fire strike team led by a Cal Fire battalion chief who was in his home region. So we had a lot of success with training, learning the operation, visiting the Hemet Air Base, Cal Fire Air Base, learning how their air ops works. And there's a couple little fun facts with them. Cal Fire, their mission statement is to keep all fires, 90% of all fires under 10 acres. And they're in the vicinity, he said somewhere like 96, 97%. They also have 2 helicopters, 2 dozers, and 15 engines on a first alarm in that region on red flag days. So I know Nick's eyeballing the board there with the helicopters and dozers, but so it was really interesting to learn that process. We were able to get out on one IA. We got called about 1:30 in the morning to go down to San Diego. We had about an hour and a half trip where we ended up on a fire that had actually burned in the same exact area. This was the 3rd time in about 7 years. So they're very familiar with how fire burns down there in that region, and the homes are very well versed in it. We had an 83-acre fire that we shuttled about 45,000 gallons of water for Cal Fire and in San Diego Fire. So it was very successful. We were held over for another operational period until they demobbed everybody and sent back. But we had a really great positive impact, dropping porta tanks, supporting the operation, the initial attack and extended attack and mop up in that area. So we worked under Steve Bregman, who was one of the agency reps from OSFM. He's one of the ICs on the OSFM team, and he managed all the 6 water tender strike teams. So overall, great experience from both sides, from both strike teams. Safe travels, no major issues, and Oregon represented well down in California. So it was good to see.
Good. Thank you, Dan.
Do you want to ask the question you had before he started talking?
Oh, no, I just had one comment on the Oregon City Fire. I also sat in on the meeting with the interagency. uh, all the different agencies, and I just wanted to comment that Chris, the consultant.
Yeah.
Edmonds, what's the consulting company?
Coastline.
Coastline did amazing hosting it. I was taken back. I almost thought, does he work for us? And it's someone that I missed. Because he was so knowledgeable and he did such a good job hosting that. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Love that. Thanks, Jim.
Good. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Go and check your house for tornadoes.
It's getting ugly out here.
I was just looking at it. It's going through Silverton.
Yeah, be careful. All right, next up, Volunteer Association Report, Volunteer President Joe Johnson.
Good evening. Not a lot for January to really report. It's been kind of just status quo. We've been getting out. We had 14 calls for service. Rehabs and water tenders have been getting out for all the calls they've been called for, and meeting almost all the arrivals. We worked through getting the volunteers into telestaff in January, so we can have a little more accountability with the rest of the organization. And then since the beginning of February, we've actually had another volunteer resign with some family issues. Some family things going on that he needed to focus on. So unfortunately, we lost Jordan Black. If you knew him, the other tallest volunteer.
Yep.
Then our recruit graduation is Tuesday, March 4th at the training center. So hopefully we'll be able to get in there for that decently. And then if any of you remember former volunteer and volunteer president Michael Morden, he recently had an on-the-job injury where he fell off an apparatus and he fractured his elbow and broke his pelvis. So he was taken from Florence to the local, I think Eugene, and then from Eugene flown up to Aurora, and then Aurora to, I can't remember which hospital, unfortunately at the moment, either OHSU or Emmanuel, and he's been undergoing surgery lately. So I texted him last night a little bit, and after his pelvis surgery, he was actually responding, but it sounds like he's in good spirits. He's got a lot of support so far. So I told him, you guys need anything, please reach out to me and I can communicate that with you guys. So if you know him or follow him on social media, they've been posting, his wife's been posting some stuff. So reach out and, send me thoughts. So
Thanks. What time is the volunteer?
7.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock?
Yep. Okay. And then probably within the next week or so, I'll get an invite out to you guys for our second quarter meeting. Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. But that's what all I have right now. You guys have any questions?
Anybody have any questions or comments for Joe? No?
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Next up, correspondence. We have quite a bit of correspondence. I hope you guys all read that. We had some really nice notes. One that I like to see it, that somebody was a group home with some developmentally disabled kids and took care of them. That's kind of what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
Want to thank Ariel for coming back and helping us.
Happy
Nice
to
to see
help.
you.
Yes, nice to see you too.
Thank you, Ariel. With that, the next board of directors meeting will be on Monday, March 17th, 2025 at 5 p.m. The meeting will be hybrid with the public invited to attend either by remote video conference or in person at Station 5, 9339 Southeast Causey Avenue, Happy Valley, Oregon, 97086. Parentheses, period. The regular board meeting is adjourned at 5:49 p.m.
Nick, what is our recognition?
It is the